Guys, welcome to the first episode of VietMenClub, where we come together and talk about things that we can relate to, our personal experiences, the things we like, the things we don't like, things that we deal with on a regular basis. I want to introduce you to my co-host. That's Brian. My IT team. Can we get camera view on? That's Alex. My name is T or Tim. A little bit background on me. I came to the U.S. At the age of 13. Our family left the U.S. I left Vietnam at the age of, when I was 13. We spent 8 months in refugee camp. So by the time I made it to the U.S., I was 14. And so, growing up in the U.S. and in both of the Vietnamese culture and the uh, the American culture, I feel like there was a lot of challenges, as well as there's a lot of interesting things that happened, during my childhood until now. Uh, so, um, and like I say, this is where we come together to talk about things, and we can't talk about things without having a good drink. So, for today, a drink of choice would be a whiskey from Texas, because that's where I'm residing now. This is this is a Texas product, 1835 bourbon whiskey. So let me crack this bottle open. Right after Brian, give you guys a little bit of background information about himself. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Brian.
Hey guys, my name's Brian. I'm born and raised here, so I'd be considered second generation Vietnamese American. My family, of course, came over on boat. Nothing besides that. My dad was from the north, my mom was from the south, so they had difference of opinions, but they both moved here, happily married. Uh, I went to private school all my life, so I was a little bit spoiled there as a Vietnamese child. I kind of was very spoiled from the get go. I now work for work. I'm a paramedic for work. I do a lot of other stuff within that uh, realm of first responder jobs. Besides that, yeah, that's really about it about me.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for the introduction. So let's crack this bottle open, so we can get the party started, or the
yeah.
discussion started. Not the party. We ain't here to party. We here to talk about shit, of things.
Oh, I can't leave out my family too. That's right. I forgot
We
about
get
that.
there. We get there. We get there. Hold that thought, man. Hold that thought. We gotta get this
Pour it
little
out. Pour it out.
drink
Thank you,
going.
sir.
We're gonna give Alex a double shot, by the way, because Alex is working really hard behind the camera there.
I like the wine glasses.
Oh yeah, it's fitting.
And
Fitting
then
for the
this is
show.
to Alex's assistant, Peter. You can have a drink. You should come and have a drink with us. This is
Oh,
Alex's assistant for the day. All right. Well, like I said, this is our first episode, man. So I'm really excited. We've been talking about this for a while, and we finally, we're able to come together and put our heads together, and hopefully you guys would enjoy the show, and give us a follow. Come chat with us. Um, we're looking forward to you know talking to everybody and learn different things. Cheers.
cheers. Yeah.
So this is my first time. Is have you had this before?
I have not. This is a first for me too.
What about you? What about you? Is this your first time?
Yeah, this is my first time.
No.
Never had it.
Let's see how we like it.
It smells good.
Ooh, smooth. Oh,
That's actually really nice.
sorry. If I'm making funny faces, I played ball last week. I got an elbow in my face, so under here I got a cut that's about an inch long. Um, so yeah, that burned a little
Burn
bit.
a little.
Yeah,
Burn
it ain't
your
from the
lips.
alcohol, man. It's from the cut. So, going back to what you were saying, you're second generation here.
Mm-hmm.
So you were born here,
Yes.
right? Um, what was it like growing up in as a Vietnamese kid in America?
Growing up was very different. I feel like I kind of assumed that everybody had the same kind of background with me, and I didn't start noticing that until I got older, and then so you started to see the difference of like how people treated each other,
Hmm.
how people act with like how they feel about Vietnamese or the culture or the food, things like that, or even the typical stereotypes of being an Asian, I guess you could say.
Right.
Um, so that was really interesting. I mean, that's like further up in my, I guess, in my age range. But when I was younger, I didn't really notice anything different besides the fact that I thought everyone did the same things that we did. You
Yeah.
know?
Did you grow up with both parents in the household?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So did you grow up like speaking Vietnamese
Yeah,
or?
so I spoke Vietnamese almost the majority of the time, like 90% of the time. The other 10% was maybe if I had to speak English for certain things, like whether asking for certain things
At
around the
what
house.
age? At what age did you start speaking English fully?
I think
Do you
six,
remember?
6 years old.
Okay.
The reason why I say that is because when I was going through like pre-K and like early grade school,
Yeah.
I didn't speak a lick of English,
That's
and
interesting
I
for a
didn't
kid that
speak.
was born here, right? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? I think that's interesting because you're not the first person that say that.
Yeah, I struggled. I struggled actually because I actually got held back because I could not speak English in school.
Yeah.
It was so bad, like I couldn't understand it. I didn't understand the fact
Did
that
they
I
make you
needed.
take ESL?
Yeah, they did. They did when I was younger.
Yeah.
I legit. They thought I was retarded or something, but yeah, like
Well, I mean, that's a topic for another conversation. I can see why, but
yeah.
anyway, so that's cool. So then you say you started speaking English fully at the age of 6.
Hmm.
How did, so at school or at home as well?
So it started mainly at school.
Okay.
Like, I it first came around when I was like looking at reading how to read. Essentially, is what it
Yeah.
kind of started it, and then it had to get translated at home. So the only person that really spoke to me in English was my mom.
Hmm.
My dad spoke mostly, predominantly Vietnamese. My grandma, who also lived with us, was speaking predominantly Vietnamese too. So there was, I only had one person to speak to in English.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what kind of slowed it down. I guess the process for
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
Um,
Did they expect you to continue to speak Vietnamese at home?
yes and no. Like initially, yes. Like it was like, well, we don't want you to forget or lose the language and stuff
Right.
like that.
Right.
But as I got older, that wasn't really a push for them.
Okay.
I didn't. I
What do you
guess
what do you think that they stopped
I think
pushing you for to speak Vietnamese instead of English? What do you think
I think
that
it had to do with just like the professions that they wanted me to do,
okay.
or the career choices. Excuse me, like the career
Okay.
choices they wanted me to pick out, and all the sports they wanted me to participate in. Whatever it was, they kind of wanted to push for it a little further because they started to notice that it was getting more difficult for me.
Yeah, but between your mom and dad though, like who was the one person that encouraged you to speak English and vice versa? Who was the one person that would tend to get mad at you when you speak English instead of Vietnamese? Was it your
So
mom or was it your dad?
it was my mom
Okay.
that was the one that like, hey, you should speak Vietnamese more at home.
Yeah.
Or since my grandma was at home, she was also very pushy about it too.
Right. Right.
My dad, on the other hand, didn't really care too much about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was kind of free about it, and his English wasn't perfect either, but
Right.
he kind of encouraged it almost at home. So,
How
uh,
did you feel though, like when you were, like basically when you were being pulled, I mean, in different direction between, your personal need to speak English and then, the pressure from your parents, your mom, your dad individually, and then your
yeah,
grandma to speak Vietnamese at home. Like, how did that make you feel at such a young age?
I thought it was normal.
Okay,
I thought it was
you
normal.
didn't fight back,
I didn't fight back because
you
honestly,
didn't question it.
I didn't feel like at first I was like, well, I guess I have to be successful in school in some sense. So like for me to like have to teach it, or
You
not
were
teach
thinking
it, but
that at
like
6?
not at 6, but like you know what I mean. Like I didn't have a mindset like, oh, I have to.
Because I say that's pretty amazing, man. If you
I'm not
start
that
thinking
smart, bro.
about your career at 6, you know what I was doing
I'm
at
not that.
6. I want to. You don't want to know what I was doing at 6.
No, but for me at 6 is like I didn't really. I guess, care. It wasn't like a big deal for me,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't think much about it.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a part of my day to day. I guess
Yeah. Yeah.
like it wasn't like a. I didn't have a personal pushback against it. If
Right.
that
I
makes
guess
sense.
because you didn't really think too much. You might have been a bit too young to really like uh
Exactly.
uh kind of what's the term that I'm trying to say mm, to make assessment of what they saying. You know what I'm saying? Uh, yeah, because like for me, when I came here, I didn't speak one word of English, man. And as a well, a preteen, well, 14 is 14 a teenager? Yeah, I would say,
Yeah, it's
right?
at
Yeah,
14.
yeah. So as a teenager, man, I started going to school and I didn't speak one word of English, and when I had to try really hard to learn the language so I can communicate with people at school. When my parents started complaining about me not speaking Vietnamese, I kind of got mad at them
Hmm.
because I'm like, you guys don't understand what I have to go through. When I don't speak the language, you know what I'm saying? Like when I go to school and I read something and I don't understand, or when people say something to me and I can't respond, you know, properly, or in a way
Yeah,
that I can understand me. So like to me, I feel like they were being really unfair.
yeah.
So I got mad at them, for that, and that's why I was asking you about it. But again, because yeah, I guess the age different, right? I mean, at 14, we going through puberty.
Right, and you
We're
also
discovering ourselves, and we started to, as I think, as men, we're teenagers at that time, but we're starting to go through the process of becoming men. So then I think in the back of our heads, we want to make our own decision when it comes
yeah.
to certain things, right? So yeah, that was my experience. I mean, when it comes to the whole, like what language I should speak at home and at school. I totally gave up speaking Vietnamese just so
I think I did too, though. I
yeah,
did too because it got to a point where I think I was like maybe like junior high level at that point. Um, and I was speaking mostly English. I spoke to my friends in English.
right,
Like most of my friends were English too, so
yeah,
or English speaking, I guess you could say.
yeah,
So I didn't have anything to, I guess, reinforce someone to tell me to speak Vietnamese at home.
right,
So it ended up being more like, well, I'm just not practicing it at home,
yeah.
and I'm just more conversing with
Are you the only
friends.
child?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm an only
I
child.
think that makes it a little bit easier because I have a sister, and my sister she spoke Vietnamese more than I did.
Hmm.
She stayed that way, so you know my parents would always throw that in my face when they talk to me about how I should be speaking Vietnamese and I shouldn't lose, that part of me and things like that. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
like my sister would speak Vietnamese to them.
yeah,
You know, I on the other hand, I'll come home and I talk to my sister in English. No, I mean with my mom and dad, I would still speak. I mean, to them in Vietnamese because they didn't know English themselves.
hmm,
But between my sister and I started talking to her in English, right? And then my mom would be like, "Why you talk to your sister in English, instead of Vietnamese?" And she didn't understand. Like that was my way to practice, and that's the one person that I felt comfortable practicing,
practicing. Right.
because even if I didn't pronounce something correctly, my sister wouldn't be able to correct me because she's learning the language herself.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that was an interesting period for me, man.
yeah, because I don't think I had, again, like I think you're right because the siblings, like having siblings or having more of an influence on your day to day, to have somebody to have a conversation
Yeah,
with, it does make a difference because for me I did not have any influence at all.
yeah, sure.
So like
There's no comparison between, oh, well, your sister or your brother does this, why can't you? You know what I mean? So it makes it a lot easier.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly, and then also too like when we had like family gatherings, yeah, I mean, I spoke Vietnamese at those too, or we, whatever, or when we had like Th or our Lunar New Year, like we always got together, and I spoke Vietnamese at there too because most of my family spoke Vietnamese predominantly. So like
hmm,
I guess,
hmm,
but those moments are far and few in between versus what I do on a day to day, going to school every day,
right,
talking to friends every day. Like
yeah.
those occur way more. So I started speaking more English, and then
So, besides your mom and dad and your grandma, did anybody else in the family pressure you to speak Vietnamese or keep up with, speaking Vietnamese when you talk to them?
Not really. No,
Okay.
not really. I think really the if I were to just have pick out one person out of the crowd
Mm-hmm.
from my family, it would just be my grandma.
Okay.
Even though my mom did have some push for it,
Yeah.
but my grandma was the only one that really like you should continue it
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
wasn't like
Probably because she didn't understand English, and it was a lot more difficult for her to learn the language
yeah, exactly.
instead of making sure that you can communicate, converse with her in a language that you both, you know, already know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So what was it like growing up, like as a teenager, Brian? Being Vietnamese,
Actually, I
and
had
you say you grew up in Houston, right?
yes, yeah. So born and raised here. Um, just to backtrack a little bit too,
Yeah.
going from going from to that point to being a teenager. I think I I don't want to say that my life experience of that point was unique or anything because I
Uh
think
huh.
everyone has their unique story.
Yeah.
But for me, I oh cheers
Cheers, Mr.
cheers
IT team.
IT
Hey,
camera
he's
guy.
the whole team. Hey, Mr. Assistant, come take a drink with us, man. Why you laying over
He's
there like that,
playing
man?
game.
What? No, you're not here to play game. You're here to have a drink with us. Yeah, we'll talk to you too. We'll
Cheers.
put you on the show because I like to get to know you as well sooner or later.
So going back to your question though, growing up from and we can dig deeper into it when we ever get the chance to. But for
Yeah,
me, was
yeah.
like,
We get there one day, I hope.
yeah. But I think
That's the
growing,
whole point of this conversation. I mean, of this podcast, by the way, guys. Like, we again, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, like I started this. I had an idea because, like I say, there were things that I went through that I could never, like share with anyone. I had to deal with a lot of stuff on my own, bad and good things, right? Um, I'm grown now, but I just feel like, hey, and even as a grown man, there are things that I still have to go through. You know what I mean? Like, because I came here, at a certain age, and even now, I mean, I think I speak English. Well, English is, my uh, uh, main language, but I think in the back of my head, because I came here at the age of 13, 14. So a lot of time I still look at English like it's my second language, you know. So the way I perceive things from time to time is different than what a normal, English speaker would, right? And especially like a non-Vietnamese person as well. So that's the whole reason for the podcast. So we get
great,
there. We
yeah,
we
we
go
absolutely
deep. We
we
go
go deep.
deep,
I
Brian.
like it. Ooh, I like going deep.
You see this? You see this? How much has he had to drink already?
Just to maybe
I only took 2 sips. Drink some more, cause I like it.
I like it too.
uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
anyway,
yeah. So growing up, so starting from that kind of like I guess young point in my life, it was a little bit of a rough childhood for me because my mom and dad never really stuck it out. So just so that I can
what do you
add,
mean stuck it out?
so they got divorced when I believe I was like 2 or 3 years old.
Okay, you were pretty young.
I was pretty young, right? So,
Yeah.
but they lived in the same household so that they could continue. And again, I didn't find this out until I was much older.
Sure.
But they lived in the same household so that they can continue maintaining like a regular family
Like a
life,
normal home,
home life like
setting.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had that to I guess live through, but I didn't really have a father figure to look up to. So much of that of my life growing up in my teenage years
Wait a minute. Hold on.
has to.
So you say they live in the same house together until you were how old?
Well, they lived up to the point where until my dad passed.
Oh, and
So
and and I'm sorry. I'm
no, no,
sorry.
no. You get,
How old were you when your dad
my dad
passed?
passed when I was 17, 17.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
17.
So they lived together up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
They
man,
lived.
that's
They
pretty
roughed it out.
admirable, man. I think
They
that's like I think for Vietnamese parents, like the traditional parents, I admire them for certain things that they
Yeah.
they were willing to do for their kids. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
your parents is a good example of that because
Yeah.
they're willing to sacrifice their personal happiness, for their kid.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So he passed away when you were
So
16,
I was
17.
16 or 17.
Yeah.
It was of December of 2015 is when he passed. But before we get to that, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't very focused on working out my, like, I guess, containing or holding my family values. Like, I wanted to change that, I guess. Especially when I got to especially when I got to become a teenager, I was super focused on making a life of my own because again, life was a little bit rough for me, even though things were much so given to me. I didn't have a very good childhood. I didn't have a really good father figure. I didn't really have anyone to look up to in some sense. So
Okay, are you saying that like after your dad passed, or even before your dad
so
passed?
before my dad passed.
Okay.
So just to bring up some things, right? Um, my dad had a lot of things that he was struggling with,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, of course, that kind of influenced our family, and
Right.
it made a lot of arguments, all these other extra um, debates, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Like how I kind of grew up. But what kind of was the pinnacle for me being Vietnamese was the fact that I had I had something that I feel like a lot of other people, whether they're not from Vietnam or they're not Vietnamese,
Yeah.
that we have, right? So
How was your relationship with your dad?
rough. It was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% rough because
In which way? I mean, because based on what you say earlier, where he didn't really say much. He kind of like let you, you know, do your thing, right? Since you were young, he
yeah,
didn't have. I'm not saying that he didn't have influences on you or anything like that, but basically, like he didn't really force you to do the things that he think you should do. He
yeah.
kind of. It sounded like he gave you the freedom to.
So I want to talk about the freedom. That's the thing too. Like the freedom was there because he didn't really care
Mm,
for me, if that makes
wow,
sense. Like
that's
I,
deep, man. That's deep. No, like for real. I'm
really,
not.
like,
I'm not joking. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Because like
I
there is a difference between you know not giving a shit. Excuse my language,
yeah,
right? And just being there,
yeah,
and or just being there, but still giving you the guidance that you need,
yeah,
right? So a lot of time somebody can just physically, you know, be there, but mentally they're not there.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's how my dad was. So and I kind of want to put this not more on myself, but kind of see how my dad took things. Is that
Yeah.
my dad? First off, there was a couple things with it. When my mom and my dad got married, they didn't want kids to begin with.
Okay.
So I was kind of a surprise child for them. My mom was happy about it because
Yeah.
most mothers, at least when they give birth, they're excited for it's just a new chapter in their life, right?
Yeah.
Um, so my mom was excited about it. My dad wasn't as thrilled. So I think he had that resentment as I was growing up,
Wow.
and he was, he
Did you ever
had.
talk to him about it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially when, like, months before he passed
Uh
away,
huh.
I actually kind of, I guess, rebuilt the bridge that I burned with him,
Right.
essentially,
Right.
and we reconnected. So it
I
was.
mean, just to be fair though, you didn't burn any bridges, man. Because like in my opinion, I'm a father. Um, I take it upon myself to build the relationship that I want to have with my kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because I don't put that on my kids. So if there if there is no bridge, or if there are no bridges, that's because of me, because of what I'm doing, because of what I have done. It's not because of them.
oh
So
yeah,
you should never put that on yourself because he's a father,
yeah,
you know. But anyway,
yeah. But that's I think I do agree with you on that. But I think the reason why I say it that way is because I think my dad did try to reach out to me,
yeah,
but I did not want any part of it, I guess, as I was growing up.
yeah,
So I think
uh,
that in some sense I guess I took out my portion of what he wanted from of building that relationship again. I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so for me, like growing up,
You,
I didn't it wasn't that I wasn't I didn't start noticing it until of course I got much older.
mm-hmm.
When I got much older, I started to notice things like, for example, my dad was a had a huge gambling problem, and as
Okay.
Vietnamese Americans, like or not even not even Vietnamese Americans, but
Just
as
Vietnamese
Vietnamese,
people.
yeah, Vietnamese like
Yeah,
in general,
yeah.
we do have a little bit of an issue with that
Gambling is
sometimes.
a big issue for many Vietnamese people because they think it's normal.
Yeah, yeah, it's the day to day.
Yeah,
It's literally the day to day. You
yeah,
know, my mom hated it
yeah,
though. So
yeah.
you know, my dad, it was normal for him. He felt kind of like
Cheers.
cheers.
How you doing back there? You good? Can I pour you some more?
Pour out another
I
one.
think I think I think the IT team. I think the IT team needs more alcohol. How's your assistant doing back there? You want to check
Looks
in
like
your
he's good.
I think we lost him.
assistant? Mr. Assistant,
That's
come on
that's
over.
good. That's interesting though, because I like I had kind of a similar experience. Like I'm not Vietnamese, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, I have like stories like that, like because it's just different. I
I
grew up in like a normal house.
and we would like to hear about that. We're
Yeah,
gonna
another
talk.
time.
We're gonna talk.
Yeah,
to
we're gonna
Alex,
put
man.
Alex in
We're
there,
gonna
dude.
dedicate the whole show to Alex.
Another time.
Yes, definitely, dude. No,
No,
like no,
I
and this again, this is why we have this show, man. Because you know, whether you're Vietnamese or you know whatever you, I think the one problem that a lot of men have is we don't have an outlet where we can sit down and kind of like
have a conversation about it.
yeah, talk about things.
Yeah.
You know, because there is that expectation that hey, you're a man, you got to be strong. You know what I mean? Like, don't get too emotional about things. You know, like you're supposed to be able to deal with it. And you know, and it's fine. But I think it's good if you can sit down and share with somebody.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't mean that I'm not handling it, but I like to share with you so that we can have a better understanding of each other. And you know, I mean, like not not only that we're men, we're friends, and you know, some of us, you know, even though we're not like blood related, we're like family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I talk to Brian a lot. I talk to you know, well, Alex, he just got to know me recently. But like I didn't have a lot of people to talk to when I was growing up. My dad is very traditional. He worked, he'd come home. My dad was a good person in the sense that he didn't gamble, he didn't do anything. He worked, he'd come home, take care of his family. But he didn't know how to talk to me about things, you know. I don't think the way he raised me was wrong. I just I felt like, and I still feel that way, that it could have been a lot better,
Yeah.
you know. And when I had, and I really didn't understand the importance of uh, uh, having a good relationship with your kids until I had mine. Now, both of my kids, I had them uh, unplanned,
Yeah.
you know. But as soon as they came, man, you know, I just something happened, you know. I mean, I just looked at my son because he's my firstborn, and I looked at him and I was just like, hey, I want to give him a better relationship than what I had with my dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I started focusing on that. I started to, you know, do things that I don't think I would have done without having a son.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I had there were times where I had to force myself to get over my own feelings, my own embarrassment or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, oh well, you know, you're a guy or you're a man and you shouldn't be this way. But at some point, I decided that hey, the only way for me to build a good relationship with my son is to put away all of my personal feelings, all of my fear, all of my pride, all of my ego. You know, I think I think whether it's a relationship with your son or your friend or your sibling or whatever, if you want to build a good relationship, um, you got to be able to put all those things aside.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you want to be a better person, not quality wise, but a better person in terms of like being able to, you know, talk to people, be able to, encourage people,
Mhm.
when they need the encouragement, be able to, you know, uh, uh, lead by example. Uh, you gotta let go of all those things.
Yeah. I think for me it's big because having my own family now, I have
Hmm.
I have a
Yeah. So are you?
yeah. I'm
Are you
married.
married?
I am married. We've my wife and I have been married since 2020.
How
So
old are you now?
I'm 26.
26. So it's 2024. So you got married when you were 24.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's young.
Yeah, so I got married to my beautiful wife Serena. She's 4 years older than me.
Okay.
She's a 1993 baby.
Yeah.
We have our son, and he's about to be 18 months old.
Okay.
But to go back, dude, I
Can we
think
can we go back
yeah,
to
yeah,
what you
go.
were saying, because I don't want to, like that's a very interesting.
But I want to go off of what you said because it's so important for me because I have the same philosophy too.
Mhm.
Because I think growing up and seeing how, and again, even though your dad, he might have been a good man, my dad had that other influence of where he was just kind of, he wasn't very respectful. He was outrightly disrespectful towards my mom.
Was
He
he verbally abusive?
verbally and physically abusive. So
Wow. Yeah, because
and
I asked, because I think a lot of Vietnamese men,
are like
not the Vietnamese men that grew up here or live here now, but the Vietnamese men from the homeland,
hmm
if we can call it that. Um, we I mean it, my homeland, not yours, because you were born and raised here. Just to be fair, I had to struggle over there, man. No, yeah. So I think many of them are tend to be verbally and physically abusive toward their wives,
yeah,
because they treat their wife like a piece of property.
and it translates
Yeah.
because I for sure witnessed that, and that was, I think that's seeing that,
Hmm.
and I would almost say participating because I would some points be almost thrown into the middle of it. You know, I think growing up, I had to put away a lot of things, a lot of my fears, it's just
Hmm.
my pride, a lot of the things that I care about or the things I think I care about. I have to put those things aside so that I can, tend to my wife, tend to my son, be a good father that my father wasn't to me.
Yeah.
Do the things that he didn't do.
Yeah.
So I looked up to doing that, and that's why, like, when you said that, I was like, it's so relatable on so many levels, especially when you start to build a family
Yeah.
or have a family.
And again, I mean, like, I don't mean that my dad was a bad father, man. It's just, I think he was the kind of, I think if we lived in Vietnam, my dad would have been a perfect Vietnamese father, in a sense that he doesn't gamble, he doesn't drink. Like I say, he work and, come home, take care of his wife, take care of his kids. He don't do anything.
Yeah.
Um, was he, verbally and physically abusive? Yeah, yeah. I mean, but we saying that because we grew up in America and we have a different perspective on the way Vietnamese people discipline their kids, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time.
So to me, even though I grew up there, I started to see that from the American perspective.
Hmm.
You know, I guess I was born different, maybe. You know, but yeah, I hated it every time. I get hit by my dad, or I get cussed out by him, or anytime he called me names, I was like, man, I don't think that's what a dad is supposed to do.
That's a hey, I was
So
it was just like that too because I was
yeah,
same thing.
but you
I
know what
mean,
I hated though? When I talk to people about that, including my mom, uh, they would be like, "Well, that's just him being a dad."
yeah, that's the excuse.
And
The
again,
excuse.
because that's the Vietnamese tradition, man.
Mhm.
Uh, Absolutely hated it. So
My dad was a bit more rougher than just the name calling and the beating sometimes. Like, and this is a bit more of a like explicit story.
yeah,
But I kind of want to put it in perspective, just so that when I say it, it's actually kind of harsh. Like my dad. So the one story I want to bring up specifically was my dad he was a diabetic, right? So my mom works at a pharmacy. My dad is a dentist. My my mom had to pick up insulin for him on the day to day, right?
yeah,
His prescriptions get written, whatnot. Literally one day she forgot to bring it home on accident. No biggie. He isn't running out, but he does need it for the next couple days, whatnot, right? So my dad gets pissed off, just like uncontrollably pissed off.
And how old were you when this happened?
Dude, maybe I was young, like single digits. I think I was like 7 or
And you
8 years old.
remember,
Dude, yeah, it scared the living daylights out of me because
huh? Man.
I thought my mom was gonna die in that period in that moment because
Ain't that scary though, man? And I think most parents they don't realize that, especially parents that or people that happen to be in an abusive relationship. They don't realize the trauma that they put their kids through, man. Like
yeah,
when they
dude,
get into an argument, when they get into like a physical altercation, or when they put the kids, like in the middle,
of
you
some
know.
yes, and
Yeah,
I just like it the it's just that's one thing out of
yeah,
many things because there's
yeah.
for sure we could talk about
Yeah,
all
and
the
I
things
and
like
I'm not. By the way, I'm not saying that based on what he say. I say that because I experienced that myself, and the reason why I asked him if he remember because I remember seeing my mom and dad fight. I think as young as I think I was like 6. I
yeah,
was 6, man, and I saw some. I think my mom and dad are still married, but through the entire marriage, I saw 3 pretty serious, fight between my parents, and I remember the details, all the small and big details of all the 3.
dude, same same
Yeah,
boat. It's scary how related or it's scary how vivid the
yeah,
image can be.
yeah, dude.
And like I could still see myself like we were in my mom's and of course it's the same house that my mom still lives in.
Yeah,
So I still remember that same hallway and her grabbing her hair, like all the stuff that
yeah,
can, it's again, it's something that is an explicit memory of mine. But those things I think is what drove my teenage years to
mhm,
be a better person,
yeah,
And I saw it as like I saw it as like I needed to take care of my mom. I needed to, you know, be self sufficient one way or another,
yeah.
and I wanted to change
And
life.
that's
Like
actually fascinating, dude, because we we've heard people say, well, I grew up in an abusive household. That's the reason why I'm abusive,
yeah,
toward the people I love.
hmm
So I think it's interesting that you made the decision, to from your personal experience with a negative, situation, and to I guess to make it a positive impact on you as a person.
yeah.
Yeah,
I love. It's weird because now I'm at a point in my life where yes, those things do. I won't say they haunt me, but if I think about it, they are dramatizing, right?
yeah, very, dude.
But the thing is, like, I think back on it now, and I think of it like I used it as a stepping stone to
It's
make my
made you
life,
who you are.
yeah, make
Yeah,
myself better, so that I can at least treat other people the same way that I would treat myself,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that's a little part of me of why when I transitioned to becoming a teenager, I was very focused on one, trying to understand what it's like to be a
So
Vietnamese
were you like a
American. Like,
good boyfriend? Were you like sweet boyfriend?
yeah, I was a sweet
Yeah.
boyfriend. Oh, it was
Do
good,
you ever
dude.
get mad at any of your girlfriends and want to cuss
So
them out?
never actually,
Really?
never. I think, I mean, I'll say now, like, if Serena was here, she'd probably agree. We've gotten in arguments
Uh
before,
huh.
but I would, I would never. First off, I would never put my hands on like my dad did.
Yeah.
My dad put hands on all the time.
Yeah.
The second thing was like, I try to be as civil as possible, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like, I'm not wanting to make it any more emotional than it
Yeah.
needs to be,
Yeah.
so that you could at least clear the air. Like, that's how I see it.
When was the last time? At what age did you see your parents get into a physical altercation? Or
I
let me put it this way. At what age, when you saw that and you wanted to stand up for your mom and you wanted to get physical with your dad?
I was 12 years old. It was my birthday.
Uh huh.
It was my birthday.
I'm asking you because I had the
I
same
remember.
thought, man.
So 12 years old, it was my birthday, and it was both to my grandma and
Mhm.
my mom actually,
Yeah.
and it happened the same day.
Mhm.
Okay, and this fucking sucked. And excuse my language, but like for
You
me
can
to
edit that out.
for me to
This show is for the kids too.
for me to put it into words, it's so difficult because visually the way my grandma had just made a joke. It was early morning
Mhm.
on my birthday. My
Yeah.
grandma wished me a happy birthday. My grandma made a joke about my dad, and I guess the joke was a little too much, like it kind of a little over the top for him,
Yeah.
and like
He snapped.
he snapped. Like, I'm talking about, like, took a knife and like threatened her with
Your
the knife.
grandma?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I had to, and at the time, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like scary. Anyways, my mom was out grocery shopping. I took my grandma and we went outside, like, and let my dad cool down. That's just a start to
Did
that
you say
day.
anything to your dad?
Not yet, not
Okay.
yet. I
Okay.
hadn't broken through at this point yet. But
Yeah.
to continue on with that day, we moved on, and then we went to go celebrate my birthday. And my mom was my mom was doing something with when we were at the restaurant. And I remember it's the Carrabba's off of Highway 6 in Sugarland. It's
Okay.
specifically
I
that one.
haven't been there.
So
Maybe you can take me
I'll
for
take
my
you one day.
birthday.
Oh,
It's coming up soon.
okay.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Happy early birthday. Let's go. But
Sorry.
no,
Kind of,
it's a
I mean, man, it's starting to get too tense, man. I have to break it off a little bit, cool it down a little, man.
Dude, I had a bit of a like, I wouldn't say it's my rough. It may not be
Yeah.
someone else's rough, but to me it was my rough.
It
And
sounded. It sounds pretty rough. I mean, dude. I mean.
so at the Carrabba's, right? So I think it had something to do with parking and wheelchair for my grandma, all this extra stuff. Anyways, my dad got so fired up in the restaurant that he started like yelling at my mom in the middle of the
And when
restaurant.
exactly is this? Like how many days after the incident with your grandma?
Same day.
Same day.
Same day.
Hey, dude.
Same day. It's my It's my
Wow.
12th birthday. Okay, same day. We are like, I was just trying to make the most of my day. Like the morning shit. Like I was putting it away. Like I'm not gonna be worried about it.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was like, it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna have a good birthday no matter what.
That's
We get
crazy,
to the
dude.
restaurant. He is yelling at her over the parking situation.
Your mom at this time.
Yes,
He's yelling at your
yelling at
mom
my
at this
mom.
time. Okay.
Where the car goes, where the wheelchair goes, where all this stuff goes. They get in a confrontation inside the restaurant. That's when I snapped.
Mm.
That's when that for me is when I felt like things changed. Like I don't know what it was. I don't know what kind of influenced me at that moment, but
You just had enough.
I was done.
You just had
was done.
enough. Yeah.
So I literally got like I put my hands on my dad. I was like, "You need to stop.
Yeah.
Like we can talk about this later."
Mm-hmm.
And I just tried. I was nervous. I was scared. I was all these emotions.
Yeah.
Like being a 12-year-old having to deal with this, it was just weird. And I had to ask my dad to sit down. He didn't want to sit down. He got fired up. He's talking over my shoulder towards my mom, calling her names, all this stuff. I had to like physically somehow get him out of the restaurant,
Okay.
and some of my family members helped to
Yeah.
get him out so that we could help him
Did he
cool
say
down.
anything to you?
The whole time we were getting him out, he was cussing me out.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Yeah.
But I at the moment I wasn't even. That's the least of my worries because there's so much other stuff to worry about.
Yeah.
But that when I was 12 years old, that was when it
Man.
made me want to change for the better. Like
Let's
it
have
was
a
like
drink to that, man. That was a good decision. I
that was a
think
good decision.
that I think that's the beginning of you become a man right there. You know what I mean? And maybe at 12 is a bit too early, but I think I reacted similar to you with my dad. 'Cause my dad's a big dude, man. Like, and for a Vietnamese person, he's 5'9". And when my dad was younger, he's like physically fit, you know. And I think he and my mom got into it, and then at some point, I just I feel like, hey, that's enough. You gotta stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when I told him, hey, can you stop? Then he looked at me. He threatened me, and I didn't do anything. But like in the back of my head, I'm like, man, I can fight you back. So, um, yeah, and I don't think I reacted that way with intention to disrespect him. I think it just emotionally, like there was nothing left. Like I couldn't deal with that no more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, dude, same boat
Yeah.
for sure.
So
Like
crazy.
it is. It's, and I think most of us either have something similar to bring up or like I don't ever want to take away from the fact that yes, like for me, that's my trauma, and I think everyone's got their own, and everyone weighs it on their shoulders differently. Like
True.
for like
But like eh, again, going back, that's why I wanted to start this club, this podcast, man, because I think us being Vietnamese, having to grow up in a Vietnamese household, many of us, went through similar issues.
yeah, oh big time.
But we never really talk about it
Never.
because we sure as hell cannot talk to our dad, because they would never be wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, as in traditional Vietnamese father's mind, it's like, I'm your dad. Everything I do is right. You can't tell me how to be a dad. I know better than you. That's just how they feel.
Yeah, like for example, I never got to share any of this.
Yeah.
Not until maybe like college. College
Who do
when
you talk to?
my now wife. Like
Wow. So you guys met in college?
Yeah, we met in
Wow.
college.
How many girlfriend did you have in
When
high school, and then like in college before you met your
so
wife?
when I was in high school, I was dating a girl for maybe a very short period, like maybe like 6-7 months,
Okay.
and then after that, I didn't really think much about dating up until like
Was she
college.
Vietnamese?
She was not Vietnamese.
Oh.
She was Filipino.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
that is that your personal choice
No.
to not date a Vietnamese person?
When it comes to dating Vietnamese
Have
people,
you dated a Vietnamese person?
never.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think I don't want that. I to be completely clear, I never wanted. I never found
But
myself
why?
attracted
But
to
why?
a
I
Vietnamese
mean,
woman, for
I'm just
example.
curious because a Filipina, trying to be
Filipina.
correct,
Oh,
yes, doesn't look that much different than a Vietnamese woman.
So actually, to clarify, this girl, she was like Filipino Spanish.
Okay.
Like her dad was actually Spanish and her
Okay.
mom was actually Filipino. So it was a mix.
Yeah.
So I did lean towards the Latina side of things, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is spicy.
Yeah.
Spicy.
But I just couldn't see myself. I didn't want I didn't want the same thing. Well, let me rephrase that because it's not what I wanted. It was more of like the fact that I didn't want to. I wasn't physically first off. I wasn't physically attracted to a Vietnamese woman to begin
Yeah.
with. That was one. The second thing was I didn't want
Do you ever
that.
question yourself though? Like, cause I know, man. Like, I know. See, I I make a choice not to date a Vietnamese person. No offense to any Vietnamese woman, who happen, to come across this podcast, or anyone with, a sister, or, a mother, an aunt, whatever. I think Vietnamese women are beautiful. I just don't think that they're for me for whatever reason. Like, I just don't find that connection, you know. Interestingly enough, though, the mother of my firstborn, she's Vietnamese. So, there's that.
But
But
I I,
yeah,
I never. I guess one again. I didn't want to put myself in that like what do you call it? Like a. I didn't want to put myself in the same. I didn't want that same thing again. I don't know how to describe it because for me it was like I didn't want to be like with another Vietnamese girl and then have like two Vietnamese family clash, and it just seemed like it was going to happen, and I
so
didn't want that. Like,
subconsciously,
yeah,
so something happened, right? I mean, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So something happened where, like, even though you can't really explain it, but like in the back of your head is like, okay, I've seen enough drama, with Vietnamese people, and
It's
I
like being
just,
guilty for association. That
yeah,
that that's exactly how I
yeah,
felt about it,
yeah.
and I
And
didn't
you
want.
just kind of like shy away from that, you kind of shut that part off. Like, I don't want to have to do anything with that. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So I looked at it as like a. I didn't look at it again like just like everything else. I didn't see it as a bad thing. It was just it wasn't for me,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I sure maybe the traditions of Hispanics, specifically my wife being Mexican, like their their traditions are somewhat very similar, but
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of things that are kind of like different, here and there they're a little different, but even still there are the foundational values, they're very close.
yeah. I
So
think personally, I think what happened.
Very family
very
oriented.
Yeah.
very very family
Well, I think
oriented.
Vietnamese people are very family oriented as well. But
Yeah,
I think like for
but I'm saying
Brian,
at the core.
yeah,
At
but
the core.
Brian and
I mean, there
me,
are differences, but
there are, but I think for you and I, and I'm gonna say this, and you let me know if I'm telling you the truth or not, or if this is something that you can relate to,
Yeah,
that you might have never thought of, right?
yeah.
Um, I think I feel like, and it took me a while to figure this to figure this out. I just wanted to do whatever I can to eliminate the possibility of having certain drama in my life. Right?
Yep.
So again, the mother of my firstborn is Vietnamese. Because I mean, we growing up Vietnamese. I mean, that's who we were attracted to, right?
Mhm.
Everything we know about a woman, you know, long black hair, nice tan skin, um, things like that.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what we look for. So
Right.
we find, the person with those characteristics
Yes.
attractive, right?
Yeah.
But then after I got with her, now even though she was born and raised here, so she's pretty much like American. Uh, but when I got with her, then there was some drama going on between the two families. Not bad, but there's that thing where they're like, oh well, you know what, like her family has certain expectation for me,
Yeah.
and then my family had certain expectation for her, and then the the two families, a lot of time, gave us problem and caused us to fight with each other.
Yeah.
So then I think after we broke up, I was like, I don't want that shit no more, and so from that point on, I completely shut out the idea of being with a Vietnamese woman. And I think when you have that kind of thinking in the back of your head, then you stop finding them attractive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because
Not
the
saying
way
that not saying that they're not attractive. You just don't find them attractive because you cannot be like I cannot allow myself to be attracted to that because that would lead to the problems that I don't want to have. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, like she's the only Vietnamese person that I had a serious relationship
an
with, right?
intimate relationship
And
with
she'd
you.
be the only one. There would never be another one.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat too. And I
Yeah.
think you put the word that I needed to describe like how I kind of put it away too, because I think that's the exact same thing. I didn't want those issues. I guess you could say. Like
Yeah.
I just didn't. I wasn't looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
Because it goes beyond your mom and dad.
Yeah.
Because every time they talk, what do you see? What do they talk to each other? Every time they fight, what did they fight about? Oh, your family this, your family that, right? It's always like, oh, this side and this side, and it's just too much drama, man. Like
Yeah.
there's enough drama from coming from one side.
Yes.
I don't want to deal with drama from both sides, dude, because that's too much for me to deal with.
Mhm.
At least like on a personal level.
Yeah.
I know some people love that. I don't.
Yeah. I don't need that. I don't need
Yeah.
that kind of stress in my life.
Man, that's
I'm
crazy.
on like 4 minutes left, so
Hey, IT team wants us to,
I'm just
end the
I'm
conversation.
just,
No, thank you. Thank you
just
for
giving it a
reminding.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
No, thank you for reminding us, man. That's why we have you here, because sometimes, again, like Brian and I, we had.
It's a great conversation.
Yeah,
It is.
like that's what
It
I'm saying.
is.
Like Brian and I, we had like quite
We
a
gotta
few
leave some
conversations.
content for the next episode.
No,
Dude.
for sure. There's
No,
gonna be
dude,
plenty.
like there'll
Plenty of stuff
It's
to
not
talk
just about
about.
content, man. Like this is not just like content, or this is not like about getting popular or anything, man. Like this is like my idea. It's just like this is an outlet, like I say, for all of us to share our personal experiences, man. I'm a father. He's a father, and one day you be a father, right? But when I was growing up, again, and maybe because we're influenced by the American culture where it's okay to be that emotional father, right? It's okay to be, a soft, right? I just feel that is important, man. It's important to to have that place where we all can come together and help each other, become better, become stronger, even.
Yeah.
Because it takes a strong person to really like let down your guards. It takes a strong person to really be able to like share your personal stories, many of which can can be hurtful, no matter when they happen, right? Because we carry that shit with us for a long time, if not a whole life.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we're ending right here, man. We're gonna talk some more next time. IT team is bugging me. We gotta jump off.
Alex
But
is
I
just
think
doing his
first
job, bro.
episode is good, man.
I just worked here.
Thank you.
This-
I mean,
this
like,
is-
man, thank you for being my co-host. And
Yeah.
thank you for being the IT team, man. We all partners here, by the way. He's I call him my co-host because I can't find a better team, a better term. But like, we're equal. Like, this is not just my podcast. This is our podcast. We doing this as a team, and hopefully we get to grow from this small team to a bigger community where everybody can come,
Share their stories, man.
yeah, and grow
Live.
together, man. Like emotionally, uh, and man, this is great.
Yeah. I'm
Hey,
looking forward.
thanks you
Looking forward
guys.
to all of it.
Follow us.
Hit the
Subscribe.
yeah, hit the
Yes.
like and subscribe
What did they
button.
say? Hey, you
Hit
say
the-
that. You say
hit
that.
the-
Hey, talk to them, Brian. Talk to them. Talk to them. Here's the camera.
Hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us. Hit the little bell so you get a notification every time we
Hey,
post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to do that because the IT team needs a job, man. That's
we got
marketing too.
we gotta
Yeah.
pay our dues. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Hey, if you guys tune in and spend your time watching this episode, man, I want to thank you.
Yeah, thanks for spending
Yeah,
the time
thank
with
you.
us.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
It was a good show.
Ooh,
Mr.
closing out,
Assistant,
baby.
come back over here, man. Get off your phone.
Yeah.
Come on. You got to take another drink with us before we conclude the episode.
He's empty. Oh, nice
Come
and
on over
dry.
here. He's empty. Oh, let me pour him one. Is this still recording?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is good. This is good. We talked to
I
him.
got one
We
little
talked to
sip
him.
left.
Oh, I got some really good questions for this kid, by the way.
Yeah, a
I
lot of
call
people
him
line
a
up.
kid because he's the same age, well, younger than my son. But we're not gonna, we don't need to know how old I am. Just know that he's younger than my son. He's my son.
Cheers, guys.
All right, y'all
Cheers.
have a good night.